So, welcome back to Meet the Locals. We are joined today by the Ashley Cornelius. We are very excited to have you. First and foremost, you look stunning in that green.
Thank you so
It's
much.
really making you pop. How are you doing?
I am doing so wonderful. I'm happy to be here and to just be able to share a little bit about who I am.
Good. We're very happy to have you. So I actually have yet to introduce myself to you. I'm Shay. I have been a fan of yours from afar, starting in I think it was 2024, 2022 or 2021 when they did the honoring the heroes in our community
yes, yes, yes.
celebration. Yeah.
Yeah.
My friends were being honored, Charles and Chauncey, who are also friends of the show.
Yeah.
And that's when I was first introduced to you, and then I got to like follow you like publicly. So it's really cool to be able to finally sit down and meet you
lovely.
after following you for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm so happy to connect.
Yeah. So what would you say has been the most rewarding, or where are you at right now, actually, is where I would prefer to start. Where are you at currently in your life, in your professional development? Where are you?
Totally. So right now I am a full-time artist. So I am an entrepreneur, which is so beautiful.
Yes.
I have been in healthcare for the past 7 years. So working in a hospital, caring for our caregivers, and then last Halloween I quit my job to pursue art full-time. So I'm in a deep place of joy and rest and just working for myself and being able to be within the community. And I'm also in a place of how can I share my gifts with the community? I think I've been so blessed and honored of being integrated and having all these opportunities. And so it really is a space of how can I give back? How can I lift that hand out or allow people to walk alongside? Because if I'm winning, that means my community needs to win. That means my friends need to win. That means everyone needs these opportunities. So yeah, in a space of growth and understanding and also being my own boss, which is a beautiful thing after being a little corporate girly for a while to just live into myself and who I am and saying yes to the things that I believe in and being able to say no, which is so hard to have that discernment of what fills my soul and what can I pass on so I can really focus on my passions.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Well, first and foremost, I 100% agree. I'm real big on each one, teach one. We absolutely have to be reaching back because if no one reached back for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. It's so amazing that you are able to bet on yourself and be so confident in yourself to be able to leave what I'm sure was a really solid, stable base for you and to really bet on yourself. So when did you realize it was time for you to make that shift? And what was I guess what really clicked for you?
Yeah, that's a betting on yourself is for sure what it is. And it's very scary too. People call it the golden handcuffs of you've got retirement, you have your insurance, you have a steady paycheck, and yet you're still bound to something that may not really serve you. And I was burnt out. I was just a little burnt piece of toast. It was so much. And we cared for everyone in the hospital, so we knew sort of every horrible thing that happened, any loss of a patient, difficult things. And it was just impacting who I was. And I felt like I wasn't truly happy and joyous, and I wasn't resting, and I don't think that, I felt like I was lying to my friends. When they'd be like, how are you? I'd be like, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, and I'm actually I'm not, and I'm so sad, and I just have so much stuff in my head, and so my coworkers and some of my best friends were like, yeah, you should take a break, and helped me apply for all that paperwork, but it just got too much, and I often say I was choosing suffering, and I decided to choose joy. I was I can do all of the same thing, but I can do it through a lens of joy. And being in that space and in that corporate world and all of that stuff just was so much struggle. But for what? When I realized I can still care for people, I can still do therapy, I can still be an artist without all of this struggle and harm. So it really was my mental health. I had to take care of myself fiercely. And then I came out the other side and I was like, ooh, I feel good. I don't have dread. I'm not so anxious. I'm not so scared. And so it was a big shift for me, but it was the cleanse and the restoration that I needed.
Yeah. And I love that because too often, especially as Black women, we put our mental health in the back to our family, to our career, to our community. So I love that you had the confidence and the foresight to know that this is something that I have to do for myself.
Yeah.
And you acted on it, because
Yes.
there is another thing is we know that we need to do more to take care of ourselves, but we are in those handcuffs and we feel like there's too much holding us back to be able to take that risk. One of the coolest things about this show is we started we came out of COVID. So we've gotten to see a lot of people's entrepreneurial journeys, and I'm curious as to what that was like for you. So you were done, you were burnt out, we were over it. So how did you know that working, or what was the process of turning your passion into your profession like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I had always been doing poetry sort of in the background, and I became Poet Laureate in 2021 while I was still working my full-time job. So like I was sort of integrated into like doing workshops and commissions and using poetry as a business. But when I took that leap and I bet on myself, it was like, oh no, you got to figure this out. And there was a lot of like joy and curiosity in that. Of I'm a spoken word poet, and so I perform a lot, but there's so many different ways that like you can use your passion or your poetry. So I perform, I do workshops, I do consultation, I help folks who are trying to like figure out resilience and burnout and healing and use this like poetry lens. And so really it was this community of like giving me those opportunities to try while I was still in sort of my like side hustle gig, and then I was able, which I'm grateful for, to transition into like, oh, this is my full-time thing, and I can like actually say what I want. I think before it was like, hey, here's the things you can do on the side, here's a little extra money, and I was like, no, I want this. And there's something really powerful about being able to like take up space and say exactly what you want. Like, I would love to work for you and your company. I would love to do this. I'd love to care for your team. And we don't often get those choices, especially within capitalism. We're working in a system that tells us what we're supposed to do, and our value is determined. And so in this way, I was like, oh, I know my value, I know what I want, and I know the people that I want to work with. And so that switch to turn my passion into like my whole job was really beautiful. And I didn't think I could do that, because we're not really told. It's like, oh, that's the side hustle thing. That's like your little project. When I'm like, oh, that's my big project. That's my whole big girl thing.
Yes.
And trying to empower more people of like, this is a possibility. You can be an artist who is thriving. I'm trying to shift this like starving artist. I was like, no, baby, I am well paid. I'm doing the work that I love, and I'm experiencing more joy and really helping people transition if that's what they want.
100%. And it's really exciting for me to be able to sit down with you, because I feel like in Colorado Springs right now, we're primed for such a renaissance of art.
Yes.
There's been such a heavy emphasis on mental health awareness these last few years, and a lot of people are returning to the joys that they had in childhood. And a lot of people are like writing poetry again for the first time. They're writing music, they're drawing, they're painting. So from your perspective as a creative, as like a leader in the creative arts in the industry, what is your perspective on the development of like the melding and the recognition of the importance of creativity and mental health?
Yeah, that's like my whole thing. I love it. So like by trade, I'm a therapist, so I'm a licensed professional counselor. And when I was doing clinical work, I was doing poetry therapy interventions. So working with folks to create poems and read poetry to help them sort of process. So that is like 100% my lens and understanding of like what mental health needs to be. Mental health is pretty stigmatized and not accessible for a lot of folks, and especially if you look at marginalized folks, BIPOC folks, historically there are reasons why it might be scary to go see a therapist or talk about what's happening. And so art has been sort of this backdoor entry for people to be able to process what they're going through, have this creative outlet, and still get their needs met. And I tell this story a lot. When I was a kid, I would journal, and I would write stuff, and then I would go back and read it, and I was like, ooh, Tommy didn't talk to me, I'm gonna rip that page out. Ooh, I had like a bad visitation with my dad, I'm gonna rip that out. Because I couldn't relive the bad things, and I found poetry, and I could write about it, and it could be wrapped in metaphor, and I was like, ooh, this is a cool poem, and it's not that direct, like, sort of re-traumatization. And often when we're healing, we're trying to process, and so I found, like, metaphor and poetry or painting or dance as a way that we can, like, move through all of our things and take care of our mental health, and also have this, like, protective layer around it, which is what a lot of us need, and it's our first entry into like, cool, maybe I'll talk to someone, or maybe I do need to take medication to support my mental health, or I need to do this. But I think art is just this beautiful vehicle for people to start to look inside themselves and recognize that we all deserve care and attention, and that we all have mental health, right? Some folks experience mental illness or have like mental disorders, but we all have mental health, and we have to take care of it no matter what. Same with our physical health, right? It's this constant thing that we're attending to and listening to and just supporting, because it's like, we got us, like we are with us 100% of the time, so we got to take care of ourselves fiercely.
100%. In just the few moments that we've gotten to speak to each other, I hear a lot of passion in your voice come through for community, for mental health, for art. So in your own words, where would you say all of that passion derives from?
Yeah. All of that passion, I think, comes from growing up here in Colorado Springs. I've lived here since I was 3, and I was often the only like Black girl in my class. I didn't see people who looked like me, and I wasn't like tapped into like art and community the way that I am now. And now that I'm older and have this opportunity, like there is that little girl inside of me who I'm creating all of this for, right? That I wish I had like Poetry 719 and art events. I wish I had like Black women in leadership doing things and artists. And I wish people were talking more about mental health. So a lot of it is like my own inner child work. And then I know that there are people in Colorado Springs who do not feel tapped in, who haven't found their community. And I often say like, the community you're looking for is looking for you just as hard. And so how can we create spaces of community where you can find that person, where you can find that group, find those communities? And I have found like poetry and speaking, people have to listen to you. And that's a wild thing sometimes as a Black woman of like, if I'm on a mic, people have to listen. You can't talk louder than me. And I think that realization, I was like, oh, everybody needs this. Everyone needs a platform where they can share what they want to say, and people have to listen. And that empowerment has like just changed my life. And I think it's a magical and powerful skill that we all have, but we don't always have the platform to talk about it or say what we need. So that passion really is like, how do we like come up? How do we create spaces for our younger children to thrive, for our inner children to thrive? Because this is about like generations, right? It's like, if someone, as you said before, helped me, how do I help other people, and how do we keep this going? Because also, we're tired. I'm getting older. So it's like, who's going to be there to take over and continue? And so this is also, I think, legacy work. Like, we got to make sure that our community is ready, so we can do all of this intergenerational work and community care together.
Yeah, so I'm born and mostly raised here. I grew up a lot of my life here, and I had a very similar experience. So it's really nice in my adulthood that I have been able to find the community that truly was seeking me out, because we have that shared experience of isolation, which creates community, which is really beautiful to me as an adult. Yeah. So with your base, you clearly have a really strong understanding of your why, and you have vision. Where do you see yourself going in the next, like, where are you headed?
Yeah. I think where I am headed is just like more rooted in like community arts and leadership, and really like, how do we bring up more arts leaders and folks who like want to do this work and understand like community care. And I also see myself doing more rest events. So I created this program called Destination Rest. So it's a community nap that's free for folks. You come in, you get a hot cup of tea that's like intentionally brewed for you. There's a sound bath, there's poetry, and then people go to sleep. And that has been probably one of the most beautiful things that I've been able to create for community, is like designated nap time and space. And so I see creating more large scale and intimate events for people to rest. Because I think that's the like foundation of all of this, is like, I was so tired in my old job, and I was so tired from all the trauma and the things, and I wasn't allowed to rest. And we're typically not allowed to rest at all, because it's like side hustle, make this money, do this, go, go, go. And so I really see creating spaces that combine mental health with art and with rest. And also I hope to inspire people to do the same thing. Because what I love about Colorado Springs is that it is unique, and sometimes it makes me really mad for really good reason. and allows me the space to process that anger and like host an open mic about activism or talk to people or create an art exhibit where I'm addressing things. And I think that's the beauty of like our community is like, yes, there's stuff we need to work on, and also there's space to do it and help other people feel like, ooh, I want to try this or I want to create it. And so how do we become permission slips for other people to do the same, to fill in the gaps? So that's really what I'm seeing for the future. And yeah, more mentorship, finding folks who are interested in this work and how to use their voices and how to get these platforms, because like we are powerful, like the arts community, the BIPOC community, like so many of us are doing like incredible things. So how do we keep growing bigger and higher and getting into spaces of leadership and power so we can redistribute that power to our communities?
100%. I think that is so beautiful. As someone who has engaged in community work in this community specifically for a while, a lot of times it's action oriented. Like even when we're having discussions, it's so what action can we take from this? I think it's really innovative and great that you're saying we can rest. Like there's time for work, but there's also time for rest, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. So just giving people space to be in community, but also to relax, it's something that is so simple, but it's groundbreaking to me. Especially in this community, everyone's all the time, how can we fix it? What is the solution? What is the next action? So I really love that. I will definitely have to come out. I'm not much of a napper, but I think I might have to try it.
Yes,
I think I might have to try a nap. And ever since I had a kid, I feel like that's changing too. I'm just finding myself sleeping sometimes. This has been really great. So what are some projects that you have working on currently that you can share with us?
Yeah, that is such a lovely question. So the big one is the destination rest. So providing more opportunities. We just did one at the Pioneers Museum, and we got to sleep in an exhibit and go check out the 50% of the Story gallery, which is an all women's gallery. So I am looking for other venues to create these destination rest spaces to bring community together to nap. And in March of 2025, I'm going to France. I got a residency in the Champagne region of France.
Wow.
So I'll be out there for 3 weeks with other artists, writing and creating. And so that's like a super big thing that I'm so proud of. And then the next big thing is I run Poetry 719, which is a Black-led poetry group here in town. And October is Arts Month, so we're going to have a full month of events. We're going to have poetry and drag performances. We're going to have erotic open mics. We're going to have disability awareness, queer BIPOC open mic. So really just a space for people to come together within poetry and engage and meet all of the like local talent, the musicians, the poets. So I'm really excited about October and all that the arts will bring. And then honestly, some rest.
Yes.
I think that's the big thing of, I just put out a book called Translations from the Soul, which is my first poetry book, which is so exciting. Thank you. And all of my friends have been like, okay, you did that big thing, but also like take a minute. And I think that is also what I'm learning to do and trying to teach others is like, you do a big thing and then you're just like, okay, next big thing without being like, oh, you did that, girl. You created a book. You just need to sit in it and revel in it and just like let it metabolize. So I'm also trying to take some space of just like, you did some really big things this year, and how can you sit with them and just like allow that to be beautiful and wonderful and not rush. But so many things coming up, and also just trying to sit in the bigness that we do, because all of us are doing big things, and sometimes we forget to celebrate and just like be in all of that joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to give you your flowers because it's so like empowering to know that you recognized what you were doing wasn't working. You made a change and you are flourishing. You have a residency in Europe, in France, and that's super exciting. I got to travel when I was younger, and it's an enriching experience when you get to go and be amongst other people and see how other people live. It just puts a lot of things in perspective for you, and you realize the world doesn't revolve around you in the way that you think it does. So I am so excited. Is that your first time for you traveling, like in Europe or overseas?
Yeah, first time for like poetry, so I'm super excited. I lived in Liberia for a little bit
wow.
for grad school, and then traveled to Uganda and Rwanda.
Beautiful.
So I love me an African country. So
Yes.
this is my first time like in Europe.
Yeah.
I took my first steps in Germany. I'm a military child, as many people are. So spent a lot of time unconsciously in Europe. So this will be my first, like, I'm here, I'm an adult, and then to travel for art, which has always been like on my vision board, is I want to go
Yes.
internationally and create and write. So this will be like such a big experience for me.
Yes, that's definitely that's really amazing. Like
thank
I feel
you.
pride. I'm proud of you. I'm proud for you. Like that's amazing. I'm super excited to hear that. I'm trying to think of what other questions I have for you. Is there anything? So you have a microphone.
Yes.
Is there anything? If you could stand in front of a million people, what would you tell them?
I think what I would say is that rest and joy are our birthright, and that the system does not want us to be rested. It doesn't want us to be joyous. It doesn't want us to have fun. And so when we have these acts of joy and rest, it is like a deeply revolutionary act. And I often say we like fight in so many ways, and it's so taxing, but also joy is another way of fighting. And the world is literally on fire, and it is really difficult and scary. And also your joy adds to the revolution of that.
Yes.
And that people have to find that joy wherever it is. And sometimes that means quitting your job, like moving forward. Sometimes that means like I'm going to order dinner in instead of creating it for my family. Sometimes that means I have to take a vacation without your kids and just have a moment alone. Whatever that joy is like an incredible superpower. And I think there's a lot of guilt and shame when we experience joy and things are happening in the world, or when we rest and we're like, oh, that's a liability, I have to keep going. But there is something so powerful about us being joyous beings. And my ancestors, I always say, like, our wildest dream was not of work. They did not want me to work. They wanted me to sleep. They wanted me to be safe. They wanted me to laugh. They wanted me to be connected to family. And so as we do this, we're also honoring our ancestors who, like, really, I think, smile the biggest when we are, like, happy and free and, like, liberated. And when we do that, like I said, we're permission slips for other people to find their own liberatory, like, joy and rest space.
Yeah. What was your entryway into? So, as someone who has been conscious of the struggles of my community for a long time, something that I truly struggle with is the knowledge that I cannot pour from my empty cup. So, how do you know, or what is your measure for the time for work and the time for rest?
Yes. Ooh, that is still a thing that I am learning. And you mentioned this earlier too, especially for Black women, when we are depressed or anxious or have like are struggling with mental health, it's often conflated with like perfectionism. Like we're not doing enough. We're not like, we have to do more, when in fact it's like we need to take care of ourselves. And so when I start to get into that hyper dependence, like I can do everything, I don't need any help, like I'm fine, I have to recognize like I'm sort of getting into this cycle of like maybe I need to take a break or maybe I need help. And that is one of the hardest things that I've had to learn to do, is ask for help. Because there's also this trope of like, you're like a powerful, strong Black woman, which like doesn't serve anybody at all, especially not us.
Right.
And so what I've noticed is like when I get that like, oh, I need help, and I override it, I'm like, that's when you need to like check in. That's when you need to see what's going on. And then when I don't make time for things that make me happy, when I'm just sort of filling everything with like, great, I have to send these emails and do all this stuff, but if like, I haven't bought a concert ticket in a while, that's something that's important. If I haven't been by the water, if I haven't taken time to look at the stars, like things that really support me, when I recognize that I'm pushing those to the side, that's a huge alarm bell of like, you have to get back to those things because you know that they work. Like anytime I am by running water, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need. And I have those moments of like, why aren't I doing this more, right? And so how can you incorporate things that are that reminder of like, this is exactly where I need to heal? So what I also encourage folks to do is sort of, when you're in a really good place, sort of write down the things that are helpful. What is soothing for you? What is grounding? And so when you're in those off spaces, you can see, oh, you're right. Like I haven't, I don't know, gotten a smoothie at my favorite place in a long time, or I haven't worked out or gone to Pilates or whatever it is that like supports and cares for you. But when you're in a state of like, you know, mental distress or you're struggling, you can't think of those things. You can't see that. So figuring out what those things are and as a measure of when you need to get back to them.
Yeah. So you gave me a few things, but what are some activities that you'd like to do that fill your cup?
Ooh, yes. I love, love, love live music. That's like one of my favorite things, going to concerts. I love going out dancing. That's a must of like moving my body, being near water, going to like a creek or to a lake. Just any body of water really refreshes me. I do really love Pilates. Pilates is great. She'd be bending me, stretching me, doing all these things. But I think working out gives me like, I can't think about anything else. Like I just have to focus on lifting this weight or like doing this squat. So that's really beautiful. And then going to art events, like, and we are full of art events and cool things to do, and just like being around other community people has always just filled my cup. And then doing my hair, like that's like one of the strongest, sometimes frustrating pieces of self-care, but I have to like wash my hair and condition it and then do a hot oil treatment. Then I have to braid it, then I have to crochet, and it's like, I can't do anything else but focus on myself. And so that has been a huge space of like joy for me, and be able to change the colors and do different styles and like this deep connection. And so being able to do that like every other month has been such a joy. And then I look pretty. And I think that's the other thing too, is like, how do we like decide to dress ourselves, and our aesthetic and all of that also fills my cup too, of like, I love when I get to like curate how I look to the world, and that makes me feel like confident and strong and beautiful. And I don't know, it's just something special that I've always found, and sometimes can go by the wayside, right? Of like, I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not having my cute little nails on. Like all of these small things matter. And I think that's what I'd say to other people too, is like, don't discredit something because you feel like it's not actually self-care or too small. Like I love my little press-on nails, and they make me so happy and bring me deep joy. And if that works for you, yes. If you love to go on hikes and do that, yes. It's like figuring out authentically what works for you. Because if you try things that you think you're supposed to do in terms of caring for yourself, it's not gonna stick. You gotta like really figure out what works, and like love that about you.
Yeah. And I really love that you're just very comfortable with yourself, and I love that. Like, I aspire to that. I do my best to be like 100% of me all the time, but as I'm sure you're very much aware, there's pressures to conform constantly, and there's pressures like, I'm not supposed to put in effort into my appearance, but I have to be presentable. And I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy doing my hair, and I enjoy picking out my clothes, and I enjoy the way that I present myself in public. But these aren't things that I'm supposed to publicly enjoy, because while I'm a woman, it's not supposed to be the forefront of my identity.
Right.
So you're just so thoroughly and fully you, and confident in that decision, and knowing that you are right in that, because it's you and it's fully you. And I love that. I'm here for that. Like, that fills my cup. Fills my cup. I love watching Black women especially be confident in who they are.
Yes.
Yeah. Where does it come from? What is the basis of your confidence?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's like years of insecurity, years of like not knowing like who I am or what I want, and getting older too, I think helps. Of just like, why am I diminishing myself for an expectation that like was not created by me at all, or anyone who looks like me? And I think I got to a point where like, when I was my authentic self and shared the things that I love, like people responded, and people like enjoyed it, and like I felt like I got the greatest connections when I was fully myself, versus when I was this other version. People weren't actually like really meeting me, and couldn't actually like love and connect and care for me in the way that I wanted. It's so silly. I love when I wear heels and like, you know, that click clack. When I was in the hospital, I'd be walking, I was like, oh, I'm coming through. I just felt like so much power. And for a long time, I was so insecure of like, I don't want to make too much noise. I don't want to do all these things. And I'm like, I want y'all to hear me from a mile away. And like, I want you to see all that I am, because especially as Black women, so much of who we are is regulated. Like our emotions, our hair, how we dress. And I was like, well, love me for who I am, or like, I am not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And I have stayed in a lot of places that I was not supposed to because I fit into a box that was never meant for me. And as soon as I became my full self, I was like, oh, this place is too small for me.
Yes.
And I think we have to sort of be courageous and brave, and it's scary to be our full selves, because we're going to find an environment that wants all of us. But we'll never know if we're truly all that we can be in spaces that don't allow us to be big and bold and silly. And I don't take myself very seriously. And I'm like, I just want to be a silly little goose and hang out, and I can still do my job, but I can also just like have my expression, you know?
I love that. I think one of the journeys that I've been on in my adulthood is my return to faith, and not faith in like a religious sense, but faith in that things are gonna be okay. Like, it might not be okay right now, it might not be okay for a bit, but it will be. And that is something that just like, as I get older, it's just something that's, especially, I was a very dramatic child, so like as I get older and I just start to realize like the world is going to keep on turning. Like, it just keeps on turning. And then that is also where I feel like it's okay for me to take space for myself. And it's okay for me to take a day. And it's okay for me to go on a trip, because the world is it's going to keep on turning. It's going to be okay.
Exactly.
So I love that. like that's really like the energy that you give me. That's what your vibe is giving me.
Thank you.
So you have Europe coming up in 25. What are some things in your personal life that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, that's so lovely. Let me think. I think what has been really beautiful in my personal life, I think it's just like deep friendships. I've been talking a lot about this sort of trope of like, it's really hard to make friends as an adult. And I think some of my like greatest friends have been as an adult, sort of because I know myself better and like I understand things. And so I think that's just what's on my heart, is that just like there are so many people who like care for you in like really specific ways, and sometimes we can focus a lot on sort of like romantic partnerships and like I love my partner and like and family, but there's something really beautiful about people who sort of have like no sort of like claim or like sort of traditional attachment of doing things, and just like caring for you fiercely and showing up for you and being able to like cry with you and laugh with you. And I like recently lost one of those people sort of unexpectedly. Thank you. And I think that has just, in the grief, has also tied me so deeply to love, of like how powerful community is, how powerful friendships are, how when I win, who are the first people that I want to tell. And so that's just been a beautiful thing in my personal life, of like trying to make more time for those connections, and how important it is to be like silly. And I'm going to Avatar in concert, like a symphony version of Avatar, and like experiencing my childhood and just having more opportunities where where there's no expectations of me, where I can just like sing as loud as I want at Red Rocks, where I can dance wild at a club, and like just really getting back to that, especially when poetry is my passion and also my hobby and also a space of like art. I think it's really important to also have other art forms, because sometimes poetry is like a little cheat code, but it's like I need to paint and I want to take like dance classes, and so just getting more well-rounded in the arts and getting into that like childlike wonder has been really lovely personally.
100%. I'm sorry to hear of your loss again.
Thank you.
They say grief is the price you pay for love.
Yes.
So I hope that you can find some solace and strength in these coming days. But I love, as I've gotten older as well, I've noticed there's just a real richness and depth to my friendships that you just can't create in childhood, because you don't have the experiences to base it on yet. Like, there's not much you can base a childhood friendship on outside of like sandbox things. So that's another thing that I've really gotten to enjoy, is as I've gotten older, is the enrichment of my relationships. And you truly get to realize, like, or at least I've gotten to realize, the people that are going to be in your life for a long time, and then the people that are there for a season, and learning to be okay with that. Like, not everyone is supposed to be with you at the finish line. Some people are there just for a season, and that's have been some of the most fulfilling relationships for me are the temporary ones. And I think it's because it teaches you that people don't belong to you, you know, people are experiences, and you have to cherish them as such. So I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I really had a really great time spending, like, talking to you.
It was
thus far.
lovely.
And well, I was gonna say I did not wear my glasses, but it looks like we're doing pretty good on time. How much? Should we keep going? Oh,
okay.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley. It's been really great sitting and getting to talk to you and getting to know you. I'm definitely going to join you for a community now.
Yes, please do.
And I look forward to watching you and being able to be a part of whatever you create for the 719 in the creative space. It's so amazing to be able to sit down with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Feel the same.
And we hope to see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.